you noticed. A couple pieces of ironwork, a couple pieces of woodworking. But the reason why I bring you up here is because I'd like to, of course, share with you one of probably the most common legend that's found here in Charleston. And, what? Look at that.
I just realized I was stepping on like a huge foundation crack or something.
That's okay. It's been there.
Step over here.
It's been there since it's been there since about the 70s. It ain't going anyplace. So yeah, you guys can actually see a little bit of the crack damage on. There's a couple of small fissures that are in the wall. But we've slowly started clearing. My favorite one's actually that one over there in the corner. That big old crack goes all the way down. So, but yeah, the building is completely safe, though, just so you know. I wouldn't be giving tours in this place if it wasn't. Now, as I said, this legend in Charleston, if you've already been on another tour while in town, whether it was a carriage tour, or a walking tour, or another ghost tour, or you've been on this tour, you've already heard some other version of this legend. And the reason why I stress to actually use the word legend is because the story alone has been passed down for close to 60 years. And like a really big game of telephone, things get weird. So you'll hear different versions all throughout the city. Every tour guide has their own twist on the story, and tonight you'll hear mine. But before I tell you mine, I would like to share with you the little seed of truth that is actually the inspiration for this legend. It's actually based upon the first woman that was ever locked up at this jail. Her name was Lavinia Fisher. She was executed February 18th, 1820. She was 23 on the day of her execution. She was married to a man named John Fisher, who was about 9 years older than she was. And both John and Lavinia were tried, convicted, and executed for the crime of highway robbery. Now, highway robbery in the 1800s, ladies and gentlemen, was considered a capital offense. You can be put to death if found guilty of stealing and selling other people's goods for your own profit. Now, although that is the true reason why the Fishers were executed, right out back, side by side, the common legend is that John and Lavinia Fisher are serial killers. Now, the reason why we tour guides tell you folks they're serial killers is, honestly, it sounds better than a highway robbery. That's really the only reason. There's really nothing in the Fisher's files that said they were even questioned about the act of murder. Now, in my version of the story, I do say they're serial killers. I mean, Whitebird tradition, right? And they murder their victims by way of a little bed and breakfast, a place they named the 6 Mile Inn. Being only 6 miles from town, there were guests, and when you came to the home, you were greeted properly. Lavinia would bring you in, serve you a meal, talk with you, and then before bed, offer you a nice hot cup of tea, soothe you to sleep. Unfortunately, for many guests, this is going to be the last cup of tea you were going to have. You see, Lavinia chose victims by questions asked during the meal, things you didn't object to, such as, what do you do for a living? Why go to Charleston? She's trying to determine if anyone will meet you when you get to town. If no one meets you, no one will miss you tomorrow either. And so with that, she'd brew up a potent batch of oleander tea. Oleander is a highly poisonous plant. It's found all through the South. And if you do consume it in a high enough dosage, it will kill you in a few hours. Well, a few hours, you probably should have been asleep in your bed, but if not, there's a backup plan. It's her husband, John. John's job was to check on these guests. He'd walk into the room prepared with a hatchet, in case the tea didn't work fast enough, and if needed, finish you there. Drag you out back, bury you in the property. Afterwards, the couple would end up selling off about 99% of their possessions. And the amazing thing is, the Fishers, they actually got away with these crimes for well over 5 years. The only reason why they didn't continue is one man got away from them. His name was John Peoples. Now, Mr. Peoples, when he stops in at the 6 Mile Inn, everything to him seems normal. He sits, he talks, he chews off the tea. The only reason why Mr. Peoples survives the night, he hates tea. But he's polite. He takes the cup, he tells Lavinia he would rather have tea in his room. Once there, puts on a nightstand, goes to bed. A couple hours go by, and next thing he knows, John Fisher is standing in his doorway holding a hatchet. Now, you can imagine how Mr. Peoples reacts. He escapes, he makes his way to town, he tells the police. And the cops, when they go and search the Fisher's home, they find no evidence. However, upon searching the property, let's just say they got more evidence than they needed. The Fishers are arrested and brought here, and eventually they sit before the judge. That judge has no problem sending both to the gallows, but Lavinia protests. She says, Your Honor, do you not realize it is illegal to hang a married woman here in the state of South Carolina? You see, ladies, back in those times, if we were married, we were actually considered property of our husbands, like a dog, or a cat, or a cow. And the fact is, Lavinia's hoping to use this idea to her advantage. If her husband is her owner, he is responsible for her and any of her actions. In other words, if she commits a crime, John must pay the price. Well, the judge knows the law. He says, well, yes, ma'am, because you are married, we cannot hang you. But if we decide to hang John on Friday and hold off your execution till Monday, well, technically on Monday you're a widow. No law in the state about hanging widows. Lavinia was furious. Over the weekend, she comes up with an idea. She asked the wardens for a last request. All she asked is she be able to wear her wedding dress on the day of her execution. I know weird. The wardens assumed she was nuts. So they gave her the dress. And on that day, as she was paraded around the town, she wore it in hopes and combination of the dress, her youth, and her beauty. Some man, somewhere would see her and would feel compelled to propose marriage to save her. Nobody in Charleston proposed. In fact, groups came through and tossed rotten fruits and vegetables at her, yelled every name in the book. And by the time the jailers made their way back here, it's a slight problem. There were 500 people waiting up front, hoping to get in, just to see a glimpse of this woman's death. Far too many folks. So, new gallows were made. Marion Square was chosen. Over 1,000 people show up to watch the execution. Lavinia, she was brought through the crowd, placed upon the trap door, and the hangman asked her politely, once the noose was around her neck, if she happened to have any last words for the people of Charleston. She nodded her head. With that, she took 2 steps forward, curled her toes over the edge of the gallows, looked out into the crowd of 1,000 faces, and said, "Anybody here with a message for the devil, give it to me, for I shall see him shortly." With that, she flung herself off the front. Well, ever since that point, Lavinia's been very well known to hang around here. Now, don't get me wrong, if anyone's here in the afterlife, she's a good beggar. But there's been many different theories on why she's here. The one theory I have found to stay pretty tried and true is she's here because she's gone back to her roots of thievery. She has to take things. If you folks haven't noticed this yet, you'll notice it now. I don't wear any jewelry when I give my tours. I don't wear a watch. And the reason is in the many years I've had given tours, I've had some guests walk off missing items. Simple things, an earring, a charm, a necklace, simple things. Now, obviously, if anyone here has any items that go missing, I'll be more than happy to search for you. Can't guarantee I'll find your item, but I can always look. Now, folks, if you would please follow me, we're going to continue on back downstairs.